Welcome to the WORKOLOGY podcast, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, gain powerful insights, resources, and perspectives on the industries of human resources and recruiting. Join your host, Jessica Miller-Merrill, chief blogger of bloggingforjobs.com, for an in-depth and no-holds-barred look into the future of our most powerful business asset, the employee. And now, welcome your host, Jessica, with this podcast episode of WORKOLOGY.
It's a good time to be in HR. I truly, absolutely believe that. I certainly also believe that it's a good time to be in human resources and recruiting technology. Keep this in mind. In 2000, the total amount of investments in the human resources and recruitment technologies industry by VCs and investment firms was $859 million. Things sort of slowed, and we've steadily seen an increase into this year, which it has just exploded. For the first half of 2015, there were nearly $812 million invested. And over the last several weeks leading up to the HR Technology Conference in Las Vegas, we've seen some notable acquisitions and also some fundings. PeopleDoc recently announced that they received $28 million. We have the new valuation of Zenefits, which is just massive. And we've had some acquisitions, including RiceSmart, who was acquired by Randstad, as well as Korn Ferry acquiring the HR consultancy Hay Group for $452 million. It's a busy time in human resources and recruiting. Whether you're a tech company or not, we're staffing, we're looking at new tech, and we want to grow our organizations and support them in their overall and business strategies. I'm here today to talk with three emerging HR technologies. So three more emerging HR technologies that are innovating the game. They're changing things. They are really breaking down silos. These are companies that you're likely not going to be seeing on the HR technology conference floor. They're around. They are maybe attending sessions, but they aren't the big guys with the 20 by 20 or the 10 by 10 booth. Many of these companies aren't even in the startup pavilion if you're attending HR Tech. These are companies that are really in the ground floor and are doing some really awesome and innovating things in our space. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these three interviews that I have in this episode of my HR Technology Emerging HR Technologies podcast. This is episode 2 of this special series. And we're back talking with another new emerging HR technology, and that technology is Questus. I'm joined with Steve Welburn and John Tabb with Questus. Tell us more about Questus, what you guys do, and who you are.
So Questus is a what we call a financial HR platform, which is the intersection of an employee's personal financial management with the employer's human resource management. Really what Questus is all about is this idea that people bring their financial habits, or in many cases bad financial habits, to work with them. And when they bring those habits to work, it impacts the workplace in several areas. So we've got a large percentage of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck, that are failing with retirement, that can't afford an emergency. And we think that those come back into the workplace, and they impact the workplace everywhere from the cost of healthcare to talent retention to productivity and engagement. And Questus is building a platform that not only provides HR and a company a solution for something that they really probably have never had a solution for to date, but it's something that arms HR with not only a tool, but also professional financial expertise, and hopefully gives them a lot of their time back so that they can focus on all the other things that they've got to manage.
I think about the number of people who are in debt, and certainly like student loan debt, which I am finally just paying off after, I don't know, almost 10 years of being out of school, or maybe longer than that. So you guys are providing, it sounds like, a great service and a resource for a lot of the employee population.
The way that we got into this was John and I are both have long-term careers in the financial advisory and specifically the investment advisory space. And I think what's happened for years is that the financial solution, the only financial solution that we've really given employees in the workplace is the ability to save for retirement through a defined contribution plan. But we make the assumption that through defined contribution plan that we're talking to investors. And I think what is really happening in the workplace is that there's a large percentage of workers that aren't ready to invest. They're either faced with credit card debt, they're faced with large student loan balances, or they're just faced with day-to-day living and lifestyle where instead of thinking about their future, which many aren't, they're thinking about things like, how do I pay rent this month? Or, can I afford to buy the ball glove for my son who's trying out for the baseball team or whatever it is. So what we wanted to do was provide a platform that would meet the employee anywhere they may be in their financial journey. So whether it's beginning at their paycheck and kind of giving them paycheck instructions, or whether or not it's someone who's approaching the retirement years and they want to know questions like, do I have enough? And we wanted to make sure that we covered all of those things, not just what we've done in America for recent decades of just focused on that kind of investing in retirement savings portion.
Let's talk about the technology that's used to provide these resources to the employees and then the HR professionals. How does that work exactly?
Yeah, we've built to date 3 applications. The first application is employee facing, and that application really addresses the employee kind of first and foremost with a very short and simple onboarding questionnaire. It's a questionnaire that can easily be answered in a couple of minutes, but through that, we've created an algorithm to give the employee a financial wellness score. And so immediately we try to give the employee something of value, but really what that does is it gives us immediate context to begin addressing or providing ideas to that employee on what they can do to become financially better off. The second application is a employer-facing application. The idea behind the employer-facing application is several things. One, we want it to be a very robust communications platform. The last thing that we want to do is go into an organization and expect to put even more load or burden on HR. So we've built in a lot of communications and things from email templates and communication templates and marketing pieces and things that HR can easily promote a successful financial wellness program to their employees. But the biggest thing about the HR application or the organization application is that we want it to be a dashboard for analytics. So as we work with the employees, we're collecting a lot of information, and we're aggregating that information and providing it back to the employer so they can start to understand, are my employees financially well off? And if they're not financially well off, where are the areas that we need to focus to help them along? So if student loan debt is chronic in the organization, how do we address it? If credit card debt is an issue, how do we address it? If predatory lending is an issue, how do we address it? So, those are kind of the 2 primary applications. The third application that we've built is really the back end platform for our advisors to support both the employees and the employer.
Yeah, and it's important to note that you were talking about all the analytics and stuff. All that's scrubbed of the user data and everything. It's just delivered as an aggregate. So none of the individual personal data goes back to the employer or shared with anybody else.
Tell me a little bit about the history of the company, because when I was researching you guys, you're not a new emerging company. You're an established organization. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is the part that I always tell people that John and I had a Jerry Maguire moment and we grew a conscience. What happened is John and I had a kind of successful small boutique investment advisory firm, and doing what a lot of investment advisors in America do, which is manage money for kind of middle tier wealthy people that have, somewhere around $1 million or so to invest. And what we began to really recognize, and this was a couple of years ago, is that our clients were becoming further and further removed from doing business with us face to face. So we were noticing that they were comfortable with less face-to-face meetings. They were comfortable with doing a lot of stuff through web meeting technologies or whatever it may be. But more than anything, what we noticed was that they were primarily focused on working hard, saving money, and then enjoying their lifestyle. The last thing they wanted to do was go sit with a financial advisor. So John and I thought that, you know what? Why can't we do more of this through a web-based application or a web-based service? And at that point, we made a commitment that we wanted to build software, that we wanted to move after 20 years, in my case, of being in the investment space. We were going to become all of a sudden a software company. And we made a commitment to do that. But it was along that path of building software that when we hired our first outsourced software development company to build a prototype for a portfolio building software, we realized that all of these very talented, pretty highly compensated software engineers didn't know anything about investing or money. And that's when we began to say, you know what, maybe the real opportunity is to actually create something that goes into the workplace versus something that is really already in existence, especially with the kind of movement of robo-advisors. So that's when we kind of pivoted and we took a business that I think that he and I were fairly comfortable in, and we really we turned it on its ear and decided that we wanted to do something that, one, we were very passionate about, which is really democratizing financial advice for everybody. But also this idea that there are really some bad financial habits, and we think that if we can address them firsthand in the workplace, then that's the most effective way to maybe start making some changes.
So I know you guys are going to be at HR Tech. If they're at HR Tech, how do they get in touch with you to meet you? And then if they're not going to be at HR Tech, but they're still listening and like, hey, I want to talk to these guys, where do they need to go?
More information, obviously our website is www.myquestis.com. And yes, I will be at HR Tech with Anthony, Jessica, and I guess the easiest way to get in touch with us is you can email me at john@myquestis.com, and I'll be quick to respond and we can meet up.
They're really active on the Twitters too. So if you're a Twitterer, shoot them a tweet, let them know that you heard about them on the podcast. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk about your cool new emerging HR Tech company.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're here talking with another emerging HR technology. I'm here with Phil Strazula. He is the CEO of Life Guides. Welcome to the Workology podcast, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about Life Guides. Tell me a little bit about your company. What does it do? How does it work?
Sure. So we help companies recruit talent through employee author content. So I started this company when I was getting my MBA at Harvard Business School. Basically, all of my classmates were trying to change careers. And how did they do it? They basically have coffee chats with people who'd already worked at the company that they were interested in working at, and figure out, is this right for me? Am I going to get the right skill set here? Work-life balance, all that good stuff. And I realized that was a really powerful kind of knowledge-sharing mechanism, but it was only happening in a couple of closed ecosystems. And so I started this blog that basically had this sort of content, democratizing it for anybody on the internet. And it wasn't long before companies approached me and said, hey, Phil, we'd love to add content to your blog. And to be quite honest, I didn't really understand why at first they wanted to do this, but I started talking to them about all these problems around authentically communicating with talent and dealing with sites like Glassdoor, and we started Life Guides. And so our platform will ask your employees to talk about the skills that they're getting and why they care about your company's mission and all this stuff that somebody would get out of having coffee with them. And then we put that content basically everywhere on the internet that talent is researching you. And as you probably know, 85+% of candidates are actually going to Google your company before they apply. And so we make sure that the right content is on your careers page, job postings, social, employees' LinkedIn profiles. And then the last place we put it is on our site. And because Harvard and MIT and a bunch of schools link to us, our site ranks really well in Google. And so the next time somebody Googles, what's it like to work at your company, there's branded content in those results.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your background. You mentioned Harvard and the MBA program. What were you doing prior to Harvard, and was there like an emphasis as part of the program? How did you end up in HR tech? Is incubator, anything like that?
Yeah, so my to be 100% honest, my background is fairly unrelated to HR and much more focused on technology. I used to work at a firm called Bessemer Venture Partners, which is the oldest venture capital firm in the world. You probably know some of our investments like LinkedIn and Pinterest and Yelp and Skype and lots of other really big companies. And basically it was my job to talk to CEOs every single day, talk to 5 or 6 and understand what's going on in technology, where can we put money to work in the next great big company. And it was a really interesting education. I was literally working alongside people who are sitting on the boards of these companies, working alongside the CEOs. But I realized that I wanted to be more hands-on. I wanted to actually run one of these companies. And that's why after getting my MBA, I decided to actually launch my own business.
Interesting. I like the point of view that you have came from investment and from the venture side, because we see a lot of engineers and data scientists and folks who've worked in the larger tech startups move over to found their own startup, but it's relatively rare to have somebody from the investment side move in to a startup, I think, especially in HR tech.
Yeah, so I should probably also mention that I'm a self-taught web programmer, so I kind of have that engineering built or bent as well. But it is fairly rare, and I think it's because the life of a venture capitalist is pretty cushy, it's pretty nice. But there is certainly a core group of people who really want to use that as a platform to learn and build their network so that they can go off and have a really great chance at launching something big and disruptive.
Well, let's talk about why your technology, why Life Guides is disruptive, and how you think it's working to change and grow and evolve the HR and the recruiting technology industry.
We're disruptive for a couple of different reasons. If you look at most career pages or job postings, they're fairly stale, and that means that companies are losing candidates every single day. And if you want to solve that, you're probably going to end up spending a lot of time and money and internal resources on rejiggering all this content and coming up with a strategy. And so our platform saves you an incredible amount of time, money, and is a lot more effective than your alternatives. And we do the alternative that is more or less working with a larger agency or using internal resources. So from a cost perspective, our platform is typically, it starts at the price of a job posting, so $250 per month for our starter package, and kind of goes up from there. So it's usually 10% or less of the alternatives. We're a lot more efficient. We've built in a lot of really interesting workflows into our product to make it so that once you get all this employee-authored content, you're not spending hours reading through it all. We actually use a machine learning algorithm to analyze all the different answers, and then we rank them by positivity. So we really quickly give you an overview of what you have to zone in on as a HR person if you want to take something down the top brand, etc. And then in terms of effectiveness, so we have really deep analytics into what content people are looking at. We have a really deep understanding of the user and what they want to see. We make sure that this is all over the internet. So we give your employees an actual incentive to put this into their LinkedIn profiles beyond simply helping out their employer. We make sure that this is in your careers page, your job postings in a super easy way in your social. We've seen 85% of people that go to a career page where we're embedded will engage with Life Guides content, which means your time on site will go up as much as 2.5x, which is crazy. And we're continuously launching new ways of understanding this information. So for example, next week we're launching a product where you can send a candidate a link that has all your Life Guides content. So let's say I'm recruiting for a salesperson and I say, hey, Mary, really looking forward to our interview next week. Here's a little bit of more information about what's it like to work in sales at our company. And then I can get all this information on, did Mary open that link? And if she did, what did she look at? And how long did she look at it for? So I know how interested Mary is in this job. I know how well she's prepared. And then I also know, is she interested in culture, or is she interested in compensation, the career path, etc.? So I have all these really deep insights into how to frame this conversation.
Awesome. Well, we've been talking about this, and I like where you guys are going with this. I think it's definitely interesting, unique, and emerging HR technology. I love the machine learning aspect of this. You're going to be at HR Tech. Can you tell folks who are listening in how they can get a hold of you, where you're going to be at HR Tech, and maybe if they aren't attending HR Tech, where can they go to find you on the internet?
You can email me, Phil, Phil, at lifeguides.me. That's usually the best way to get a hold of me. We will be at HR Tech in the Startup Pavilion, booth 850, I believe is the Startup Pavilion. And you can just generally check out our website, lifeguides.me, and we've got some videos right there on the first page or our employer landing page that really gives a deep overview of what this platform does in a really succinct little video.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Phil, for taking time to drop by the podcast. Look forward to meeting you in real life at HR Tech.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jessica. Likewise, I'll see you out there in Vegas.
And we're back with another interview of emerging HR technology. I'm here with Shakur Mishra. He's with Simpler, and he is talking about his new HR tech. Welcome to the WORKOLOGY podcast.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about Simpler. Tell us how it works, what it does.
So Vipul and I actually started Simpler because we wanted to help organizations tap into the talent that's hidden in their employees' networks. And we are data scientists, machine learning engineers, both 10 years of experience, and all through our life we were responsible for building teams. It was engineering teams, whether it's making a referral or encouraging our teams to make a referral. And we were also actually avid users of products like Netflix and Amazon, where we were constantly being recommended based on what we liked, what we didn't like. So we wanted to actually build, taking our knowledge of machine learning, building recommender systems, and kind of build the same experience for employees when it comes to employee referrals. So as an employee, if you get on to Simpler, you will see, here's a list of people from my connection list who are fit for such and such opening in my organization. So that is kind of a very high-level view about, what a typical experience for a user looks like on Simpler.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background, because you have a background in Silicon Valley with a number of very well-known companies there. Walk us through that and how that helped you sort of build this and create something that, in my opinion, is one of the more unique HR technologies I've seen in the last 6 years.
Yeah, so in Silicon Valley, both Vipul and I, Vipul started out in Silicon Valley at Proofpoint, and Proofpoint was really small, and he was kind of, leading the spam classification team at Proofpoint. Then he was at Dig, and then he was leading the entire event recommendation system of a company called Eventbrite. I joined Vipul at Eventbrite too. I was totally working on a different product. My product was helping people design seat maps. It was very consumer-oriented kind of feature of Eventbrite. So when Vipul and I were both at Eventbrite, where Eventbrite was going through, hyper growth at that time, we were constantly being asked to, find people from our network, great engineers that we have worked with before. And we actually wanted to help our companies, like so many of our peers at Eventbrite. But what we found is that the whole process was so inefficient. We were having to crawl through our network, manually look for people who might be a fit, who might not be a fit. And the experience of sharing these connections, over an Excel sheet, attaching their names over email was just not working out for us. So that's where we always, and one of the things what we always realized is that employee referrals were one of the best hires, regardless of which company where we worked at. So we wanted to actually, knowing that background, knowing that knowledge, using our skills, we actually wanted to help our recruiting teams, our hiring managers, in a modern augmented intelligence, machine learning way where we can, put employees' graphs front and center in front of employees, so that they can, with a click of a single button, they can actually start sharing, meaningful talent, meaningful recommendations with their recruiting team.
Well, let's talk about why this technology and what you're building is unique, because it is very different. It's certainly a new use of machine learning that we haven't seen a lot of in the human resources and recruiting space. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree with you that if you look at the innovation that's going on in the rest of the world, like especially in consumer side of things, HR tech was way, way behind. So one of the things that we were seeing in HR tech, and it's like a trend that we started observing 4 or 5 years ago, when HR tech started becoming a little bit more consumer-oriented, the first thing that started happening is the use of social networks. But the kind of use that started happening was, sharing over social networks, sharing positions. So what we call internally is, broadcasting of what's going on in your company. It is great. I mean, we both loved it initially, but as the usage of social network grew, as, more automated publishing came into picture where feeds, updates were getting, taken care of by machines, we knew that people are actually filtering these out. So the engagement numbers are going down significantly, and to a point that most people, even if they are not filtering them out, their mind is subconsciously filtering all of this, job advertisement on social networks out. So we actually wanted to turn this whole thing inside out. We said, hey, social networks are important because they are great indicators of who you know socially and both professionally, but reaching out explicitly is not the way to go. What we are going to do is we are going to use the knowledge of machine learning, recommendation systems, data science to find out about who you know in the network, what they do, what they've done in the past. Use that to, selectively, or like you can use the word, hand curate. It's not literally hand curate because it's been done by, computers and algorithms, but we will put people in front of you. Now, you tell us whether you agree with these recommendations or not. And, recommendations are just learning systems as employees interact, as companies interact with these recommendation systems, they tend to improve a lot. Ours has already improved in the last 15 months of our existence, like many, many times more. But as companies actually use simpler more and more, they tend to improve even more. So we said, we're going to give you recommendations. You tell us whether you're going to like it or not. If you like it, thumbs up, share it. Or if your company culture provides you to actively reach out to these individuals, you can actually reach out to these individuals too. So we've facilitated this two-way thing where we're not only telling you who is a potential fit, but also providing you a means over email to reach out to them. And we are, allowing companies to customize their message based on their needs. And we all know that if we are going to receive an email from someone that we know, there's a high chance I'm at least going to take a look at that email once. So that's what we feel like. It's an efficiency-based, completely, you are not broadcasting anything ever. You are hand-selecting the people. Your employees are helping you hand-selecting the people. And Simpler is enabling the communication between the recruiting teams, employees, and the potential talent they want to reach out to.
Well, thank you. And you guys had a really awesome announcement earlier this month, your $1.2 million in Series A funding. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so excited about it. We were running a lean organization for a long time. That actually speaks about our core principles too a little bit because we didn't raise a big round. We wanted to keep the dilution low. And we also wanted to, involve strategic investors. For example, Greylock Partners is our investors, Z-Park Capital, Coalition Ventures. These are just some of the top investors who actually participated in that round. So very excited about that too.
Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you guys if they wanted to schedule a demo and take a look at everything that you guys are working on over at Simpler?
So the best place to do that would be our website, and it's spelled as www.simpler.com. It's again the word Simpler with two P's, Simpler.com. workologydisruptive.com. Over there, they can find a bunch of information about our product. There are screenshots. We are working on putting case studies over there, but over there, they can request a free demo of our product too.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We'll be including a link to the website also in the transcript of this podcast as well.
That's awesome, Jessica. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much. And that concludes our podcast number 2, featuring HR technology companies who are emerging and disrupting the workplace. This podcast episode, we talked with Questus, Life Guides and Simpler. I'm excited for part 3, where we're going to be talking to 3 more emerging HR technology companies. Thank you again for listening to the Workology podcast, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, HR, and recruitment. This is Jessica Miller-Merrill. Until next time, visit Blogging for Jobs to listen to all our previous Workology podcast episodes. We'll see you in Las Vegas for HR Tech.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller-Merrill, provided by Total Picture Media.